Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Laurie Young, and I'm very excited to be facilitating this webinar with Rich Caldwell. I'm currently the Director of Competitive Intelligence at Lone Star and was named a CI Fellow in 2023. I've been doing competitive intelligence for over 30 years, so I've probably forgotten more than some people, some newer people are learning these days. Our speaker today is Rich Caldwell. He's a 23-year Air Force veteran, specialized in communications and computers and systems. He had all sorts of different roles across the Joint Staff. He stood up the new Directorate of Counterterrorism and worked with the National Military Joint Intelligence Center. He also spent about 20 years in the aerospace and defense industry, as an engineer, as a program manager, as a capture manager, and as a competitive analyst. He has worked competitive analysis both as an analyst and a leader during a lot of his career. He helped teams at Northrop win corporate big priority wins. He was the lead instructor for a big competitive intelligence and PTW boot camp, teaching over 1,800 students over 10 years, and has blogged many times about competitive intelligence. Recently, he retired to pursue a consulting career and is still doing competitive intelligence in the aerospace and defense industry. And he has his own company, and I might also add he's a brilliant photographer. Rich, it's on you.
Thank you. That's a lot there. So let's look at the learning topics for today. I call them hot topics. So what we're going to do today is talk about strategic positioning. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart, and it's very well, I consider very important and key to winning business. And competitive intelligence has a key role in that. And as we go through this, we're just going to refresh our memories about what competitive intelligence is and is not. I'm not going to throw any definitions at you. I'm just going to go through a list. We're going to talk about business being an ecosystem. So I'm a systems analyst and systems engineer at heart. So I look at everything as an ecosystem, and that's how I look at competitive intelligence. We're going to look at the key elements of strategic positioning and how CI is the key to doing it. The activities that we need to generate intelligence, do strategic positioning. I'll give you some examples of strategic positioning. I have one specific one in the back that really stands out, and at the back end of this. And then make a point. Winning takes commitment, so make it habitual. So we can move on to the next one. So what is strategic positioning? Well, I call it positioning to win to keep it short, but strategic positioning is trying to get your company focused on a valuable position in the market. It sets you up, sets you apart from your competitors. You're always working strategic positioning. You're continuously defining and refining what's going on, and then you're making decisions to take action to find a superior position. It's not a one and done deal. It's not, we're going to do this to win this activity and then we're good to go. You know, it's done every single day. It's working to take advantage of the whole market and making the specific choices of things to do and things not to do. And it also requires a whole market approach assessment. This is where the CI part comes in. So if you want to position your company, what does that mean? You're going to go out there and leverage everything at your disposal to make your company stand out, to be superior above your competitors. So that means partnering, working your supply chain, working the academic institutions, your local, state, and market incentives, and there's other activities you can do there. Even working with some competitors and also national resources. There's a lot of things you can do position your company. The important thing to remember is they all need to fit. For instance, if you have a needs-based strategy and you're just focusing on one customer set, you don't want to go out and brand yourself as we can do everything. That doesn't fit, right? So it's got to fit. So all these activities that you do should fit and add up to your position, right? It's also continuously done. It's unceasing. the market is always changing. It's always fluid. Things happen out there. And so you're always working your assessment, all right, and you're to position yourself. And it takes a total commitment to win. It doesn't do any good for a CI analyst to come up with a bunch of great ideas and analysis. You hand it to leadership and they go, hey, thanks. And they don't do anything, right? It's meant to take action. All right.
Rich, given all your years of training and doing competitive intelligence, why did you pick this topic?
um, well, most recently, I think I've seen a trend, and it comes from mostly, I think, the customers pushing this way, but they want specific spot information or intelligence or data. They'll come up and say, hey, just give me the goods on the competitor. That's all I need. What are the things that they're doing bad? So just give me one chart that says strengths and weaknesses and we'll be good. Or they'll come out and say, find something's wrong with their pricing or what's wrong with their branding. And you can't do that in a market. Everything in the market is contextual. There's a reason your competitors are swimming a certain way. The market, the competitors, they're thinking about the suppliers. There's all types of market shocks that are going on. And I'll show you the pillars that we're going to go through. But basically, you're in it to win it, and not going out and doing spot checks. What's our competitor doing today? Well, what about the market? It just took a dive. Well, we just want to know what the competitors, and there's also been a trend of folks putting, here's a template you can use for this or template for that. It's not a template. To me, competitive intelligence, strategic positioning is a mindset and not a tool set. So let's go to the next one here. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's set the record straight on CI a little bit here. No definitions, but what it's not. And a lot of this has come from some observations that I've done. I've been doing I've been doing a survey, which hopefully I can make a pitch for that here at the end, put the link in the chat or something. But I've been doing a survey on the state of competitive intelligence, and I've been interviewing a lot of C-suite executives, and the state of the profession is not good. There's a lot of confusion out there of what's happening. In some of these, what competitive intelligence is not, is coming from this survey and talking to a lot of folks over the past six to 8 months. It's not about the competitors. It's not just about finding bad things about them. It's not running really cool analytical tools or building a battle card. That's not going to help you. It's not reacting to competitor moves. It's not going out and finding out what's the compound annual growth rate of a chosen market. Do we have enough runway there to play in it, right? It's not spying on your competitors. It's not done only when it's needed. And it's not producing new market brands and awareness campaigns. Now, some of that stuff is done, but it needs to be done as a complete whole approach. Competitive intelligence is a necessary business discipline, just like marketing, just like pricing. It's its own discipline. You analyze the whole market. It's a whole market approach. The customers, the competitors, yourself, that's always forgotten. You need to assess yourselves as well. It's a formal and continuous evolving set of activities. You should be doing it all the time, not just when the next opportunity is coming up or the next bid's coming up. You're seeking insights and patterns across the whole market for strategic advantage, not just looking at an individual competitor or an individual opportunity. You're looking at your business in the market you're in. And it's used to anticipate competitive activities across a lot of robust strategies. I think this quote over here on the left from one of the CMOs I talked to, and I kept it anonymous when I interviewed folks because some of them have NDAs in place and things like that. But he thought we need to rebrand. He said we're in an identity crisis. We need to rebrand and get consistent. And I found that talking to a lot of them, that they're just not seeing consistency across the board in the profession. So back to the fundamentals, strategic positioning. Let's move on to the next one here. So why is it important? Well, no company is ever safe. There's no such thing as gaining a substantial lead over your competitors and keeping it. There's always somebody knocking at the door. And when you take your foot off that gas pedal, you're in trouble. You always got to be thinking about what's the next move. What do we need to do? Even after you won the biggest, opportunity in your life, you should be thinking, what's next? How do we keep it? How do we move forward? Right? It also clarifies your unique value proposition and why you matter to your customers. Market shocks happen all the time. You need to be prepared for them. You need to be you have your plan in place and not react to the market, right? And that's what strategic positioning helps you do. Tactical moves are kind of like band-aids that cover up the problems, but they don't address the underlying issues. Strategic positioning does. And it's essential for long-term success. I like what Tom Peters says here. If it ain't broke, you probably haven't looked hard enough, right? Go fix it anyway. Okay? That to me is what competitive analysis is about and strategic positioning. Let's go to the next one. So strategic positioning for CI requires that you look at the whole market approach. I want to address a disturbing trend that I've seen here. Let's go to this next one here. I call it the piecemeal approach, or actually competitive whack-a-mole. And what this means is CI folks are kind of treated like a hammer, all right? Look, this problem popped up over here, go take care of it. Boom. Oh, this one over here, boom. And you're always, going from one problem to the next, one competitor to the next, one market shock to the next, but never looking at the entire picture. And some of the comments here that I'm getting from these executives and leaders, we only need competitor analysis to find the goods on our key competitors. Really? What about the market? What about the regulatory environment? What about all types of things that are happening out there with inflation and things like that? There's a lot more to this. Another one that told me, says, I just need to know what's wrong with the competitors. Just give me a SWOT, that'll suffice. The tool of the week. Let's do a SWOT. Oh, in fact, got down. I've been in the situation where it got down to just drop the OT off of it and just give me the SWOT. Give me the strengths and weaknesses. I don't know how you derive a strategy from that. Give me the market intelligence, things like the CAGR and the size of the market, and I'll do the rest, right? So you're not really giving anybody anything value there, just give them one piece of the pie, right? I want to know their strategy. What's their branding strategy? So these were actual quotes from a survey that I came up with, and I see a lot of vendors out there trying to push one thing over another thing, or this tool or that tool. All of them are important, but you have to decide which ones to use, right? I don't always go out and use a SWOT, and I'll tell you that now. I come up with my own landscapes. I come up with my own business canvases and things like that to try to look at the positioning. So, all right, let's go to the next one here.
Hey, Rich, a question. When
Yes.
you interviewed CEOs,
Uh-huh.
did they have an understanding that competitive intelligence is more than just Googling it?
Yeah, they did, but a lot of them are starting to lean into, well, we got all these great AI tools. There's some great dashboards. Some of them are using some of these dashboards. And I said, good, but that's not intelligence. That's just information displays. It might be part of your intelligence toolkit, but it's not intelligence. So there was some of that. Some of them weren't interested so much in the recommendations. They just wanted the information, so they make the decision themselves. I've been in that situation, but we're not Alexa. We're not the Google, right? Our job is to provide a perspective on the industry, and I think there is some confusion out there, especially with with this whole AI thing that's coming up. But don't let that distract you. The best intelligence tool lies between your two ears, right? So context and strategic, now hopefully I answered that. So context is
Yes.
really important in doing this. You have to look at the whole picture. This is where we're going to get into ecosystem. So let's go to the next one. So I'm a systems analyst at heart. So when I first started off doing competitive analysis, I didn't have a big business background. You know, I had a little bit here, a little bit there. I was doing capture management and things like that. So I took the approach I took for everything. I treated it as a systems analyst would, and I looked at businesses. I said, "Oh, this is nothing more than an ecosystem. It's governed by certain nearly immutable laws, economic laws out there that have stood for thousands and thousands of years. Why should this be treated any different? I mean, it's like every other system. There's all these things impacting it from the outside, but we have ways to look at that and see what those impacts are. So I came up with what I call the laws of business, uh, like the laws of laws of physics. They govern the operation of the business, and to me, they remain remarkably unchanged over thousands of years, right? So let's go to the next one so I can show you what I mean. Right. So what's the whole market approach? There's four pillars that you probably want to be looking at all the time: yourself, the market, the customers, the competitors. Now, ripping right through all that stuff is the market drivers and shocks. Regulatory, your steep analysis, right, or steeple, or whatever those elements that you're using. Um, those things are driving that and kind of, manipulating it. But those are the key pillars you want to assess, right? And you need to consider those within context. If something's happening to competitors, you got to think, well, why did they do that? Was it something the customers did? Was it something they're getting pressure from their stockholders? Are they getting ready to release a new product, right? All within context. What's the market space doing? Are you in a big market? Is your market new? Is your market reaching its end of life? Is it a big market? How many competitors are in it? So all these questions that you have to look at. Let's go to the next one. One thing that I want to jump in here right away about strategic positioning, that it kind of is a guard against bias, right? If you're looking at things objectively through those different pillars, uh, you're working to reduce your bias. There's a lot of bias. I'm biased. We're all biased, sometimes to the point where we're just searching for the things that will support our assumptions and stuff like that. So how do you eliminate that? Through strategic positioning and through your competitive intelligence. Use a comprehensive structured analytical techniques. And I won't tell you which ones. I use different ones depending on what is going on with the nature of the market and the nature of the pursuit. But I still look at all those other four pillars, customer, competitor, market, and ourselves. I take a systems view look of things and try to see. I break the whole thing down into piece parts. Okay, here's the competitor. This is what they want, or no, here's the customer. It's what they want. Here's the competitors that have that product. Here's the suppliers. So I break it all down and I analyze that. I simplify and take a look at that, right? And also, I'll go out and seek diverse perspectives, vice a single point of view. So I get the engineers to look at the designs. Hey, could you look at the designs of these competitors here? I'll have the cost analysts look at the expenses. I have our buyers. If we have a buyer, a branch that does your buying, what's the typical discount that companies get for these products, and what's the market look like to you? Is it really hard to get these supplies? You have a lot of internal capabilities that you look at. How about the product marketers? Look at marketing. I often talk to the marketing folks and said, okay, I was at a trade show. I saw this. Lockheed Martin changed their colors from blue to white. What the heck are they doing? What does that mean? Because they're smarter than me on that. So you have this team underneath you that can provide this analysis. And they spent their lives becoming engineers and cost analysts and marketing folks. So tap into that. And then how's your CI team independently of other functions? You don't want to be under maybe business development. You want to be attached to them, but not under that. If you're under them, then basically they might start driving you to give you the answers that they want to see and not the answers they need to see, right? And so that's something I wanted to throw in there. If you ever looked at the cognitive bias code, you can see there's a lot of biases, and you'll start recognizing things. Go, oh, I do that one. I do that one, right? So let's go to the next one here. Let's get back to the ecosystem. So laws of business. Here's how I viewed things. Systems analyst again. I broke things down and says, well, it's a business, right? So businesses have customers, competitors, suppliers, new entrants, and market environment. I can identify those. I can assess those. There's certain laws of organizations. Organizations are run by people, right? They dictate the behavior, the culture. All right, I can identify that. The structure of organizations defines behavior. Okay, I got that. I can figure that out. I can see if they're a flat organization or a steep organization, remote. Okay, I can figure that out. Behavior becomes habitual. It's just a common thing. People get used to what they're doing, especially if they're doing something that's successful. They try to repeat that behavior, right? Laws of supply and demand. That's still taught, I hopefully out there, but prices are largely determined by the relationship between supply and demand, unless somebody's messing with the ecosystem through regulatory things or artificially. But you can still identify those things. The law of the customer. Customers want value. I don't know any customer who just goes out and says, "Hey, let's go buy a piece of garbage today." They don't do that. They want value. You got to determine what that value is from their point of view. Competition. Competition is a regular of economic activity. Do you have a lot of competitors or a few? Is everybody chomping at the bit? Are they trying to imitate you? Who's the leader? So you can identify that. And then the law of common sense. To me, businesses are really out to make money, and they're really going to generally refrain from doing something egregiously stupid, right? I don't know a business out there that goes and says, "Hey, let's do this." So if you see them do something that looks stupid, you got to question that. Say, was that done on purpose, or maybe they're missing some key information, or maybe I'm missing some key information. So when a business does something that looks like, boy, that didn't look smart, there's intelligence behind that, right? So to me, here I am, bringing in science again. The ecosystem, everything in the ecosystem, it's kind of like quantum entanglement. Everything is connected. If something happens in one area, it's going to impact something in another area. So those are kind of the simplification lens I look at and say, okay, if I ever get lost in something that's complex, I go back to the basics, all right? Where's the suppliers? Where's the competitors? What's the value, right? So that's kind of the laws of business. Let's move to the next one.
I think one of the things I've experienced is that
Mhm.
people forget to focus on the customer, understanding the customer environment, what they're dealing with, that kind of thing. They forget to factor that in.
Yes. And so one of the laws that I didn't put up here, it's kind of something I've always thought about, that your competitors have a strategic position, and it's often wrapped around a customer position. That makes sense. I mean, you're driven by what your customers want and what they're going to buy. So in knowing that, if they have intense focus on that, usually supply chain tailoring, therefore, is not positioning, but optimization, right? You can be positioning if you're going after certain suppliers, maybe a single supplier of a chip that nobody else have, and you do an exclusive agreement. That would be positioning. But just going out there and trying to get your costs down and your supply chain down, that's optimization. There's a difference between that and positioning. So what can you do? What are some examples of strategic positioning? So if you take those things on the left, there's a whole range of things you can do. You can write white papers, you can partner, you can lobby, you can do demonstrations, you can do trade studies, you can do CRADAs. That's cooperative research and development with your customer. You can do state and local incentives. If you look very carefully at some of the locations of your competitors, you ever wonder why they're in a hub zone or a special economic zone? So you can get those tax benefits that gives them some type of a leverage over you, right? You can do academic papers, have somebody in academic world write about your product, and it looks like they're, supporting you, but actually you're supporting them, giving them the information, right? Portfolio shaping. trimming up your portfolio. You go to trade shows and how you approach trade shows. You're doing designing a cost. You're doing shaping a customer. You're doing joint. There's a lot of activities that you do. You'd want to pick the most high leverage ones and work them in unison. So, if you're going to a trade show, you want to make sure that your papers, your academic papers, are in line with what your marketing is. I've seen companies go out there and they build their trade show booth and they forget to update it. So 2 years later, it's the same darn booth, the same darn, PowerPoint presentation going on, but then they're talking about a new product and you're going, this doesn't make sense. So that's not a fit. So you got to go out there, make sure that's done. But there's a whole range of activities, and I'm going to get into some examples of that in a minute. So let's go to the next one. So what can you do? What can you do to position to win? Let's hit the next one. So some things that you want to do is a complete market assessment. Hopefully I drove that home. It's a complete market assessment. You're constantly updating because the market's constantly shifting. You're going out there and asking your internal customers, what are the intelligence and information gaps you have? And you're going out there and trying to find those all the time. And you're keeping that up to date. You're providing an intelligent estimate, right? All intelligence are really estimates, unless it's 100% fact and proven, which is hard to do in our business. You never have time. Time's never on our hands. But you're updating your business leads regularly. You're not waiting for them to go, hey, can you go find this for me? You're actually out there generating intelligence daily and feeding it to them as it comes up. It's not a regular thing. Intelligence just doesn't happen, on an hourly basis. But if you find something, it's not like fine wine. You don't sit on it, right? It's not going to get better. You get that out to them immediately. You target recommendations to increase the positioning, and you update that regularly. You don't wait. If you do your strategic positioning, I often build a strategic landscape and use that as my baseline, and I'm constantly assessing that, and I'm using tools out there to keep me informed of what's going on in the market, because there's just so much happening out there. And this is where those dashboards are useful. I use Feedly a lot. I use notifications from the competitors. When they put out a news release. There's a lot of things you can do to keep up with what's going on. There's podcasts out there, news reports, all right. So you're constantly updating that. You get commitment from leadership to act, right? It doesn't do any good to spend all this time and effort and they just sit on it, right? You overcome the status quo. A lot of companies like to hit a spot and go, okay, we're in the sweet spot now. We're in the sweet spot. We're going to stay here. If you're staying in your status quo, you're losing ground. So you're constantly trying to overcome that status quo, and you're overcoming the fear of change. That's something that see a lot of companies. You go put. I've done some, for instance, some scenario analysis and came up with some great ideas, and I push them out there, and leadership goes, "Oh boy, that's just too hard." Well, they're the guys getting paid the money to make those decisions, right? There always is risk in business, and then they don't want to take risk, and then they're not interested in winning. That's how it goes, right? Let's go to the next one. So a little bit on that commitment stuff. I think this is one of the biggest things that is a barrier for us to overcome as competitive analysts, especially in strategic positioning, because often there's a cost to doing this. There's a cost to making a partnership. There's a cost of going out and talking to your local state officials. There's a cost to doing things, period. So to me, it's like the difference between a ham and egg sandwich. In that process, the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. So you want to be committed, you want to be the pig, right? Not just kind of involved, right? So let's go to the next one.
The big challenges I've seen is big companies don't know where to put the CI team.
Yes.
I was in a company and we were moved 5 times in 5 years.
Yeah, I was moved around quite a bit, but basically we were attached to business development. One organization I was under marketing, which was useful to a certain degree, but not so useful. I still think you need to be aligned with either strategy and business development.
I
But
agree.
if they put you under pricing, the pricers are going to tell you, you know, that's not the way to do this, because when you're doing a price to win, you're going to come up with a recommendation that may hurt, and they'll say, we can't do that. So, well, let's talk about what we need to win. Then let's talk about how we get there, right? And if you're under that organization, they don't want to hear that. They're just going to say, I have a market, I have margins to meet and revenues to meet, and a good PTW analyst will come up with recommendations in what you can or can't do. So strategic positioning is what I'm pushing here. I see a lot of tactical things going on, but strategically, this is things like forming partnerships, joint ventures, creatives with your customers, strategic pricing, tapping into local, state, and national incentives, working with the customer on their vision, architecture, and future. There's something, a lot of times they don't know what they want, right? Sitting down with them, writing those white papers, getting some academics involved with them to help them, come up with that vision, real important. Tactical things are like pricing wars, lowballing, waiting for the proposal to come out because that's where we're going to ghost the competitors, right? Briefing the customer on that they should choose you, right? In other words, you're selling to them, selling to the customers. Customers don't want to be sold to, right? Believe it or not, they want to buy, but they don't want to be sold to. But so strategic positioning is really long range. It's deep, it's lasting, and tactical is often short and damaging. It's reactionary. Strategic positioning is getting out ahead of everyone else and being ready for things that happen, right? So let's go to the next one.
So I can
And
understand that if you're if you've got a big team, but
yes,
how does a one-man band do this?
it is difficult if you're by yourself, but if you kind of go, I kind of gave some clues early on, earlier. You have to co-opt the rest of your business development folks and your marketing folks and your pricing folks and things like that. Competitive intelligence is everybody's business, right? You've probably heard, if you've been in the business side, business is everybody's business. Everybody should be a business development person, engineers, pricers, everybody. That's the same way with competitive intelligence. You can have those people out there with their eyes and ears and listening to things and helping you with things. Maybe you can't go to every trade show. Well, you have business development folks, train them to go, do some of your work for you. They're not going to be able to do everything, but you could say at least go out there and talk to this company here and get some information. You can talk to your buyers internally. I get a wealth of information when I talk to them. They'll tell you what the market's like. It's really hard to find IBM 360s right now. Somebody seems to be buying them all up, right? And oh, tell me more about that, right? You can go to your marketing folks and talk to them about the branding pressures. A lot of them have neat tools that look at social media and all types of stuff, right? I can go on and on, but what you do is you have to co-op those folks, but you don't want to, overburden them because they're going to say, well, that's not my job. But if you can find things that they're already doing, just say, could you share that with me? Could you keep me informed? I know if you're going to go see the customer next week, can you tell me afterwards what you talked about? Who came in after you did, or who was coming out of the office before you went in? And you interview them that way. Tell them at least, hey, when you go to trade shows, collect up business cards of everybody you can possibly find. There's a lot of little things you can do to co-opt that stuff. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but everybody should get involved with that, right? So that's kind of what you'd want to do. It is tough if you're by yourself, but you shouldn't be, right? So you're gonna have to train folks to the point where they go, yeah, I see that CI is everybody's job, and I've had some great success for that, where we'd have customer reps, and they would go out and they'd send me detailed 3-4 page details of everything that they talked about and what they saw, and I always thank them profusely for that because I want to make sure I don't fall off of those, right? So that's how you can do that.
The other thing you can do is you
Yeah.
can offer them something. So you're asking them questions. When
Yeah.
they give you some information, you can say, hey, I'm going to show you the latest assessment I've done on X, because I know you're going to be seeing them or meeting them. So if they see that it's a two-way street, they're more willing to help you.
Yes. Um, and then also, if you can automate your information and data collection, let those tools do that for you. If you can find the right ones that can parse it out to give you what you need, let those tools do that for yourself. Let it do the work overnight. You sleep. So when you get up in the morning, you can hit the wires and go, oh, back when I was did some stuff in the NIMJIC, we had this thing called dailies, and they really did them 3 or 4 times a day. But you come in on your shift, you gather up all the current intelligence, you talk it over your team, and then you produce, here's what we saw, right? So you're doing your dailies. You're looking at what happened, what happened in Bosnia, what happened over here, what happened over there, right? And it's just something you do all the time. Automate that as much as you can. Of
Right.
course, remember, trust to verify. Some of the tools out there are misleading, but if you can automate that, that helps. So some specific examples. I'm not going to go through all of these. You'll get a PDF of the slide here, but in your customer space, what you should be looking at is what job does your customer want done? What's their definition of value? What's the range that they're willing to pay? What's that price elasticity? Do you know what their budget is? Do they have a holdback? Well, in the government space, you can go look at anybody's budget and they'll say, hey, these guys got $1 million for this program. Well, no, they really don't, because they'll use some of that money to pay for the office supplies and other contractors and stuff. So what do they typically hold back? What's their acquisition strategy? Those are the things that you want to be looking at for your customers, right? And just some examples, not all. In your market space, what's the life cycle of your market ecosystem? Is it introducing? Is it in growth, maturity, decline? That's going to tell you a lot about what you can and can't do, what you can recommend and what you can't. If you're in decline, you're not going to go out there, increase prices on products that have been around for a long time, right? That's an example. What type of market? Is it perfect competition? Where there's just everybody, or is it monopoly? Define that so you know what your wiggle room is. How about your competitors? How many competitors? Do they work alone? Do they partner? What's their cost structure? What's their bidding history? What's the wrap rates that they put on what they're selling? Are they experienced? Are they new entrants? I will tell you, in the government space, the customers look at this quite a bit. If a new entrant comes in and they have a great price, they'll risk them up. They'll say they haven't proven to us they can do this. So there'll be a learning curve, and they've got 30, 40 years of history and data to support that newcomers will make mistakes, right? So they run an S curve. What's their past performance? What's their value change? What's their proposition? What's their risk tolerance? There's more you can do on that. What about ourselves? You need to know about yourselves. What's our capability to win? Do we have the products, the capabilities, the engineering talent to move forward with this? Or what's our gaps? What's our desire to win? Are we really hungry for this? If that's the case, then let's go down 10% below the leading competitor in pricing. How do we do that? Well, you work with the pricing team and you figure out which knobs to turn to get to there, right? Or you come up with a long range strategy. Let me tell you about strategic positioning that I saw from once called Raytheon, now RTX, but they had a LTAMS radar, right? And they sold that at a loss to the U.S. Army, so they could win. And the reason he did that is, because they wanted to win, and they were that was a very important franchise for them, so they knew they had to win it. So they came up with a strategy. Let's do international sales. Let's start lining up international sales of an international version of this. So they start working early on to get the State Department and the economic folks to agree to sell, European versions of LTAMs and things like that. That's how they're going to make up their cost. They're going to lose for a while, but they'll make it up. So that's kind of a strategic positioning example, quick and dirty. There's more to it than that, but just a high level. What's our cost structure? Our cost structure and our value chain. Can we partner? Can we lower our costs? What's our risk tolerance? So each of these pillars has elements And I like putting them in as questions because then it gives you something to do. If you just say, I need to find out my customer, I need to find out what their value is. If you ask a question, how do they value things? You can put more action to that, and you can ask other people. All right. So that's kind of a quick look at what you should do for each of these pillars. So let's go to the next one here and talk a little bit about the quick cousin to strategic positioning, or a key pillar of it, and that's strategic pricing. It goes hand in hand along with how you're going to position your company through partnering and things like that. So my two top resources for that has always been Nagel's and George Mueller's book on strategy and tactics of pricing. It's an excellent book. It's almost like he sat down with Michael Porter and they just sat there and exchanged, tell me about your strategy ideas. And okay, great book. And also, if you're in the government space, Marsha Lindquist has this great book on strategic pricing for government contractors, and she does some webinars and stuff out there. So, two things I always look at when I look at strategic pricing. Most important thing about strategic pricing and strategic positioning is what I call the law of the farm, right? If you're going to do any type of strategic movement, you got to start early. You can't show up 2 weeks before the proposal and do anything with your strategy. So that's what the law of farm is. Takes a while for potatoes to grow. 3 months usually, 3 or 4 months. So you don't go in July and expect to harvest in August. That's the law of the farm that applies to all your strategy, strategic pricing, right? Know about yourself. It's all of this is risk management. All of the stuff that you do in CI is risk management. And what you're trying to do by finding that intelligence and information is burn down that risk as much as possible so they can make a decision. It's complex to do all this stuff, but over a while you can come up with a structured approach. You can refine it, and keep working on it, and you can reuse information and tactics that you used in a previous bid, and decide how you're going to create value up front. Talk to your business development people. Are we market or value based? And Nagel's book goes through what this means. I have a slide in the back. You can look at that. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. But the other thing is needs or variety based strategies. It's right out of Porter's book or article on what is strategy. A lot of people read that and they glaze over and they move on because it seems too hard or difficult to grapple. And I thought about this for a long time, and it just makes sense to me more and more every time I look at it. If you know how you create value and who you're creating value for, that's like 90% of the effort. And then you can apply that to your competitors. Let's move on to the next one. This is an example here. And I got a couple other short ones if we have time. I want to make sure we have time for questions. But strategic positioning, here's one that I looked at. And this is probably about 9 years ago. But what was happening in the satellite business, satellite comms business, is it was disruptive. You had SpaceX coming in and they're disrupting the market. You have a lot of companies figuring out how to build small satellites. They're faster and cheaper to build. And all this is driven back to the chip market, where now you can build these small little chips that are high power, right, versus big, large things, and communication waveforms and software defined, all this stuff happening all at once. Now we can put up a really cool satellite that does a lot of stuff that's about that big, right? Launch prices started to drop because you had SpaceX, disrupting, and competitors going in there saying, yeah, we need to do that as well. And so those are going down. And, there was less demand for the big satellites, the GEO and MEO. If you can send up a satellite into the geosynchronous orbit, it's going to be $1 billion thing, right? If you're going to put a LEO satellite up there, it's a lot cheaper, $500,000 or $240,000 maybe to build it and get a launch. Maybe it's not as capable, but there's reasons why you'd want to do one thing over another. So there's a change in market conditions. Lockheed Martin's going, wow, we've been in the satellite business for a long time, and we're getting our lunch eaten. So let's re-snap the chalk line here. So some of the things they did, they roll out a new family of satellite buses that consolidate common component manufacturing. So this part for this satellite is the same for that satellite. Why not, have a common, it's a simple, efficiency thing, but it made a big importance to them. They built a new state-of-the-art $350 million satellite manufacturing plant with 3D printing and parallel manufacturing. So now they can pump it out faster. They roll out software-defined satellites so they can reconfigure the satellites once they're launched to meet the demand. So it goes up as a communication satellite, but they're also using it as an ISR. So they're using it for surveillance as well. They petitioned the state of Colorado and received $15.5 million in tax incentives because they're bringing in and tax credits over 8 years because they're bringing in 500 new jobs. Remember I talked about, hey, state, local level, man, if you can get $15 million under your belt, you can bring your prices down, right? They increase their engineering talent pipeline. They realize they don't have enough pipeline. So they went with Metropolitan State University, University of Colorado. You can go down there today. There's a 4-story building, has Lockheed Martin on the side of it. And they teach students there how to do 3D manufacturing. They get them certified in 3D manufacturing. They get them certified in building satellite. Guess what? Now you got a pipeline of engineers. Where do they want to work? Oh, for the people that just taught me how to do this. So that helped them a lot. They invested $1 million in advanced manufacturing facility at the Metropolitan State University to both do R&D on 3D printing capabilities. But you know what? What do those students do in the summertime? They're interns. I'd pay an intern $19 an hour to do the work that an engineer that was making $150,000. So they're bringing their pricing down, right? They established a degree and certification program in space operations. They made themselves a pipeline. So those are some of the things that they do for strategic positioning. Quick examples, some other ones. You probably all know about Lime, the scooter company, right? So they're looking to go into business. They had to write their own software. They had to have an app to do it. And they put these things out on the street. And a lot of cities said, hey, we're getting a lot of these scooters involved in accidents and things like that. So they wanted to keep their business, and first of all, what they looked at is, there's underserved customers out there. There's people that just want to go 1 or 2 miles. They don't want to have a taxi to do that. And so that was their, getting through the barrier, the taxi barrier, right? And going out there and looking at unserved customers. And now what they're doing is working with cities and putting in bike lanes. Hey, if you put these bike lanes in there, then you won't have problems with cars hitting them so much, right? Because at least here in Denver, there was a point where they say, we're going to outlaw those darn things. They're just, everybody's riding them on the sidewalk. You shouldn't ride them on the sidewalk. You go downtown Denver now, there's bike lanes, and they're separate lanes with barriers. How about NVIDIA? Big NVIDIA, right? Well, they have a variety-based positioning, right? That meaning they're offering capability from their graphical processor units and AI capabilities on multiple platforms for multiple industries. So a whole variety of stuff, right? They're not just singling in on gamers. They're going after computing, the game industry, cloud, networking, data centers. So it's a variety-based positioning. And so they work with those companies and partner with them. They have like 30 or 40 partners, right? So they've done a lot of positioning there. And what really gave them a big boost was cryptocurrency mining. They wanted those GPUs because they were so fast, right? And that gave them like $15 billion in new income. SpaceX, disruptive. They're out there doing stuff. They strategically position. They realized that the launch market was in bad shape. We shouldn't be buying rockets from Russia. Not a good idea. So they went out there and operated in the red. How they position? They went and found 90 investors that gave them billions of dollars to keep them from going out of business. And then they started their own satellite communications company and started pumping up all these little satellites, as many as they could, and they're operating in the red, but they hit underserved customers at a good price, and now that's where the SpaceX gets most of their revenue from. So those are just some ideas of strategic positioning. Let's go to the next slide here. To wrap us up really quick here, winning isn't about beating competitors. It's not about waging price wars, being faster, being better, doing things better. It's about creating a unique value proposition, and that's what strategic positioning does for you. It's doing something different than everybody else. It's being committed, and it's making it habitual, right? So that's kind of what it's about, and I call it competing to win. Let's go to the last slide here, and Laurie, you can start throwing out some questions at us. But I like what Vince Lavardi says here. Winning is not something; it's an all the time thing. You don't win once in a while, right? You do it all the time, right? It's all the time. Make it habitual. But losing, that can become a habit, right? So winning and losing are kind of two sides of the coin here. So questions, what do we have here?
So we're in the chat. It looks like Q&A is not working. So if anybody has a question, please put your question in the chat. And I apologize, our power just went out. So you saw my background.
I saw your lights go out.
Very
Yeah.
dark, yes, but fortunately my laptop is still charged, so that's good. But if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. The one question I'd like to ask is, your example, who do you think now does on what you've seen?
I lost part of that. You froze for a second. Who do I think does
Positioning to win the best?
Well, I gave you a couple of examples, and I wouldn't. Here's the thing: there's some companies that do this really well, and then they take their foot off the gas pedal. I don't know why they do that. You gotta keep doing it. I mean, if you look at like Apple with their iPhone, it came out, yeah, whoa. But what do? They keep producing the same iPhone over and over and over and over again, right? Where's the next innovation, right? So you have SpaceX out there. They're doing a lot of this. They're doing a lot of this, making partnerships, and but they have a little bit different goal. Their goal is to go to Mars. They state that on their page. Their goal is not to provide the best communications for the citizens of the world for the next 40 years. Their goal is to they're using that to fund their drive to get to Mars, right? And so they have a little bit of different advantage there. They're not. I think there's some biases taken out. So SpaceX does a lot of positioning, but they don't do any marketing. They let social media do the marketing for them, right? What they do is they get partners. They go out there and they're constantly working with partners. They're constantly with the government. They're constantly finding, when Starlink went and put up their satellites, there was a $950 million award that they got from the government. They had to give it back, but they're going after that because they said, hey, we're providing communications capabilities to underserved customers, so we qualify for this incentive. And then the government gave it to them. Of course, all the rest of the satellite companies said, whoa, wait a minute. And they pulled that back, but they keep trying. They keep that strategic positioning, and you watch what they're doing. They moved their manufacturing to Texas because the taxes were less, real estate was less. That's strategic positioning. That's a hard decision to make. Moving an entire factory. What do you tell the workers in California? Hey, you want the job? Move to Texas. Right?
So we have a question from Claudia.
Yeah.
What do we as CI professionals, when clients come to us with a project that has a narrow view and that does not really cover things that are important? What do we do?
Yeah, so I always start off with an interview with my customers, and I always try to find out. So, what's your goal? Kind of like Lafley saying, "What's your winning aspiration here? What do you want to be when you grow up? What's your business supposed to be?" Right? And I kind of match that up and say, "How does this contribute to that? How does this narrow project contribute to the franchise or whatever you want to win, what business you want to be in?" And you start asking them questions like that. Vice saying, Well, that's a narrow project. I don't see that really impacting our company. Go somewhere else. So you ask them questions to get them to think about it, right? One of the things I always do is I always do a five forces. I have my own worksheet I go through. I can get folks through in 45 minutes, but I let them do the work. I just let I have questions and answers, and I go through and I score it for them. And then I get back to them and say, "No, let's look at the results of this thing that you said was a waste of time." And we start looking at it, and they go, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "See where your maneuvering room is. See what you can do." Um, so I had some customers that would come forward, and I'd say, "Well, so how many competitors do you have?" And they go, "4." I go, "Really?" "Yeah." I go, are these the 4 that you like to compete against, or are these the 4 that are in the entire market? And when we start counting them, I'm going, really, you have 15. There's 15 competitors here. You just want to beat the top 4. Yeah. I go, you still have 15 competitors. That's still an impact, right? So you just ask them these questions. And you ask them questions, and it kind of brings that out, so they can understand the value of what they're doing. Hopefully
Okay.
that answers that.
I've got another question from Kent Joris. He says that his experience at 3 different companies is that a given company has a pretty well-defined small set of the usual competitors. Tend to think we know that group really well and how they'll behave, and there are occasional disruptors. But aside from that, how can you stay fresh and avoid groupthink with the same old competitor set? That's a really good question.
It is. So yeah, I've been there too. Hey, we have these 4 primes, and we're always going up against them, and we know the organization, we know they're captured, we know the wrap rates, we know this, we know that. This is what they typically do. Um, so I like to go out there and kind of put my nose down into the business and start seeing the peripherals. What are the adjacencies? In other words, you go to a typical prime and you start looking at, so who are they teaming with? What's their next move going to be? Where are they putting their money for R&D? Where are their patents going? What's happening here in trying to get past yeah, we already know them. We know how they operate. Really? Do we? I mean, what we saw with some of the big primes out there is a lot of them getting nervous because of new companies, small little companies coming in and taking away business because the customers don't want vendor lock-in anymore, right? We were all stuck for a long time, big companies doing waterfall approach to software, and all of a sudden Agile came out, and all these small companies started pumping out software much quicker with little risk. It was always a risk issue for the customer, but they figured out how to do agile programming and things like that. So I'm always looking for the next thing. What's the next thing? Are they investing in that? Why did they hire this person here? Why did they redo their marketing? You got to keep asking those questions and stand back. And so you kind of do a murder board. I've done that before with a couple of my folks. I just say, today's Lockheed Martin Day. All right, here's the slides. Let's go through this and let's talk about this. And I brought in some of these engineers that were teamed with Lockheed and these other folks, and we just go at it. And you always learn something new. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. Geez, if we didn't do this, I didn't know that. So I borrowed that from the Air Force, where we would do things like a day without space. What happens if we had no satellites? What would we do, right? You kind of do that with your competitors. What happens if Raytheon and General Dynamics got together and did this? Maybe you don't have an opportunity for that, but just say, what would happen if they did that, right? So you got to kind of keep working it and ask different questions, right? Hopefully that helps.
The other thing you have to you have to absolutely keep your finger on the pulse of the market,
Yes.
because the competitors are going to react to the market. And if there are shifts in the market, then you can look and see, are they doing what you expected them to do, or are they doing something unusual? And then you've got to dig in deeper and find out what the root causes of that behavior is.
Yeah. So while we still have a few minutes left here, let's go to the spaceman slide. I want to make a real quick pitch here. I'm getting ready to close out my data analysis. I'm making one more pitch there, the Survey Monkey. sometime in August or so, I'll just do a LinkedIn presentation what I found out about the state of CI. And the advantage for me doing this is I don't have any preconceived notions. I'm not a vendor. Yeah, even though I'm doing consulting, I'm just, it really doesn't impact that. I'm trying to take, an independent approach. So I think you're going to see my results are a lot different from some of these vendors. I'm not pushing a product at the end. I'm not pushing my services at the end. I'm just telling you what the state of the market is. So please hit that link. I think we're at
Yep,
time
one more
now.
slide, one more
Yep,
slide. So
there you
we
go.
don't have a webinar in July, giving everybody a summer vacation, but on Thursday, August 15th at 11 Eastern, Jay Nakagawa, who is a 2023 fellow with me, I've worked with him for many years. He was chairman at Skip, is going to be talking about measuring investment return on CI. He's going to talk about ROI doesn't have to be hard, but you have to think about it. A calculation can be easier than you think. And there are multiple frameworks to be reviewed in numerous products. The other comment I would make on this is justifying our existence is very, very difficult depending on who your audience is. And so having a really good framework for an ROI conversation to justify hiring people, keeping a group, that kind of thing is very, very beneficial. So please come back and join us for this webinar. I want to thank Rich for his great, insightful comments and thoughts. Everybody will get a copy of this presentation and you will have access to the recording. But thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Just one off the stage thing here. Just remember that CI is 50% of business. Unless you do it bad, then it's 100%.
Thank you, everyone.